Alright guys, so the Far Cry 6 and Dying Light 2 trailers just released yesterday or the day before, whenever this video goes up, and so I figured we'd talk about them, go over them, tell you what I think. I literally just finished watching the Far Cry 6 trailer maybe 2 minutes ago. It just came out, so that's what I'm going to talk about first. And so right before the trailer went live, right, they did a 24-hour release and then delayed it another 30 minutes, so I had time to think about Far Cry and all of that, and thinking about making this video. And so what Far Cry does really well through the ones I've played, 3, 4, 5, and New Dawn, right, is their story and the location, their atmosphere, right? The gameplay, if you want to argue, you do the same thing in every single game, right? They give you guns, you go shoot people, you take over outposts, and you shoot more people, right? There's some stealth here and there, some unique skills and things on trees and stuff like that that's different from game to game, but relatively they're the same thing, excluding Primal, but we're not going to talk about that game today. So the first thing I thought when I saw this trailer, and I've watched it at least 3 times now, right? From recording it and slapping it in here, getting it ready, editing it down. I've watched it multiple times. I think the game is really ugly. That's the first thing that stood out to me when I watched the trailer for the very first time. That's the first thought I had. I think Far Cry 5 looks better, and I'm not saying the game looks terrible. It definitely looks better than Far Cry 4 or Primal, and I think those are the order they came out in, but I think Far Cry 5 looks significantly better than this game. I don't know what it is, but just everything looks really ugly, and they have some good shots, like that jungle shot and this ocean shot, and, it doesn't look terrible, like I said, but it looks like an Xbox One PS4 game. It's definitely not a next-gen game. So I just wanted to start off with what's probably my biggest negative. But from there, it's all positive, right? And I was thinking again before the trailer, these games are typically heavily on their story and the graphics and the environment. This one, I feel the exact opposite from this trailer. The story, that's just something I have to play, so I can't really say anything about that right now. Graphically, I already addressed that. And the only interesting setting I really like here is the city, because I don't think they have that in any other Far Cry game, just these actual cities. They have the towns and the tribes that are around the map that you see in this trailer, but an actual full city with multiple streets and buildings and roads and intersections, all that stuff, I don't think that's been in a Far Cry game before. Now, that being said, the two things that really impressed me the most for this trailer and the things I'm actually excited about for the game are the weapons and the vehicles. Right? So you see here, that was PPSH M16, it's just 1911, some normal guns. But then they show off some really interesting ones, just like flamethrowers, miniguns, the saw launcher from Far Cry New Dawn. None of this is completely original, but just the design of it looks really cool. I like how these weapons look a lot. And again, there's going to be normal weapons, there's AKs and pistols and M16s, all that stuff, but these unique weapons that are, a mixture of just trash thrown together, I think that's a really cool idea. The other thing that I think this game, again from the trailer, looks like it does really well is something that a lot of the other Far Cry games just completely lack. And that's the whole vehicle section of it, right? Far Cry 3 and 4 has vehicles, but they're more just to get around the map. The helicopters are okay, but again, they're not anything cool. Far Cry 5 starts to dip into that a little bit. It has a lot more vehicles, a lot more modded vehicles. Some of them look really cool. But again, from this trailer, all of the cars look really cool. It looks like there's a lot of customization with it. And you're just going to have a lot of fun with old classic cars with MGs on the top of them, just lighting people up. The final thing they touch on in the trailer are these backpack weapons, the mortar one, the flamethrowers, a couple other ones that they show off. I think these are going to be a 50-50 thing. They'll have to see till the game is out, because they're either going to be something that you always have and make you insanely overpowered, or they're so rare that they aren't really that cool and don't matter because it's just going to be a scripted moment in a level. And so, aside from that, from what they actually showed in the trailer, the actual gameplay loop of Far Cry 6 needs to be different, right? Because Far Cry 3 was the first really open world one, and Far Cry 2 had open worldness to it, but it wasn't that big. Then Far Cry 4, Primal, 5, Dawn changed it a little bit for that looter shooter type feel, but it's time to, I think, change up the Far Cry formula, right? It's really generic if you really strip away the location and the story and all of that. It's drop you in a place, go take over this outpost, go take over this other outpost, go take over this other outpost, do a main mission. And that's essentially how the game works. They lock off a region until you've done enough outposts, and then they unlock it, and it's harder enemies and new weapons and better gear, stuff like that. And it's pretty much the same thing every single game. Now, if that's your thing, that's great, but it's going to get boring after 4 or 5 games, which is what they're at about now. Now, I think that's challenging for Far Cry, because if you really break down what most of these games are, right, there's your story side of it that's usually well written and well developed, good characters, all that stuff, good scripted gunfights, explosions, all of that good stuff, and then your open world exploration and all of that stuff. And so you can't really lean towards one side without taking away a lot of the other stuff. So I don't know what they would do, but I feel like the outpost to outpost taking over or region influence lowering, all that type of stuff, we gotta move on and be done with, at least for a little bit. We've done that for at least a whole console now. It's time to move on. But that's all I have to say about Far Cry 6. So let's go ahead and move over to Dying Light 2. So while Far Cry shows us a lot that we haven't seen, just because they haven't really showed us anything before, Dying Light 2, the trailer that just came out, that's like 17 minutes long or something, I feel does the exact opposite. I feel like there's a lot of time here, and they don't tell you a lot. And I get the feeling that Dying Light 2 is just more of Dying Light 1, right? There's not these insane changes that they've made, aside from some parkour mechanics and the choices you can make that develop the story, but for the most part, I feel like the game has stayed the same, and that's why they're not showing us a whole bunch. Unless they're just, for some reason, keeping everything a secret, even in this gameplay trailer. The things they're not discussing, sometimes in the background they'll just show a new mechanic by accident without actually discussing it. But for the most part, everything seems almost identical to the first game. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? Dying Light 1 is very good. And sometimes when you make a sequel, just making more of that first game works if there's a big enough gap between them, which for Dying Light, there definitely is. Graphically, obviously, the game looks better. It will run better because Dying Light 1, it looks good at times, but it can struggle when there's an absurd amount of enemies on screen, which with the zombie game, you get a lot. The biggest thing that this trailer interested me in, right, like I said, there's not too much new that they show here other than the whole faction system, which, again, isn't anything original. But the biggest thing that I found interesting here is the focus on the human combat, right? Dying Light 1 had human combat within it, but once you got to a certain point, probably the halfway point, they introduced guns, and then you could just shoot everybody, right? So that solved that problem of having to do melee combat against other bandits and people. But like I've said in another video, Dying Light 2 supposedly will not have guns in it. So that means you're going to be melee fighting both zombies and people. And so the first Dying Light, in my opinion, the worst element of the game was the person versus person combat, right? You could never really tell what they were going to do. They could kind of cancel animations mid-attack or mid-block. The dodging system, while it worked for zombies because they were insanely fast, for people it was just weird. And so I'm hoping that it's reworked in a way to where fighting bandits and other people works a little bit better and feels more natural. If not, again, it's not a big deal because it's mostly zombie stuff. I'm just nitpicking here because the first game is actually really solid. And so, while the Far Cry 6 trailer showed us a lot of new weapons, new gameplay mechanics, the world, the map, the story, along with some vehicles, this trailer, again, we've already had one other gameplay trailer where we've already seen a majority of this. We've seen the map, we've seen, for the most part, these factions before. They explain it a bit more here, but we've seen it in the other trailer. Most of the stuff, again, hasn't really changed much. It just looks like an expansion on Dying Light 1 with a couple new parkour mechanics, maybe some new weapons, new gadgets, stuff like that, new skill trees. For the most part, it just seems like more of Dying Light 1. Again, I don't think it's a bad thing, but that's just my opinion on it. You guys let me know what you think of both of the trailers down in the comments below. If you liked one trailer over the other, if you plan on getting one game over the other, if one trailer made you not want one of the games or be interested in one of them. Both of these games come out towards the end of the year. I believe Far Cry is October and Dying Light is December. So they're going to be coming out with Call of Duty, Battlefield, all the other 3,000 games that come out in the last 3 months of the year. So you might be picking and choosing what game you're going to get. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew about these two. Make sure, especially Dying Light 2 looks real solid. But again, you guys let me know what you think down in the comments below.